Yeah, she's in the show downstairs.
That's
right
a
up
very
the
moving
gallery.
piece.
Do you have your snow leopard still, or did that sell?
Yeah, but I have, I didn't, the only picture I brought was just my Xena, my dog, that's the only
Well,
one.
tomorrow we want to
But
bring
yeah,
some
tomorrow I can
big
bring you.
You're local, you gotta bring
You
your
live
big stuff. This is
here,
our
you live
tip.
here, you're not bringing your art with
Blogger.
Okay, so any more questions? We can move on to the next person. Mr. Rod will enlighten us.
It's like we got a whopping big class. We got a student of one.
I just have one thing. We don't have framing on it. I mean, you know, it's tricky because it's a black thing, and I mean, how do you guys all frame your work? So if you can, you know, give some pointers.
Framing is something you'll have as many opinions as you have people telling you.
I know, that's why I'm saying. I just want, you know, like, you know, how everybody thinks, you know, like if it has to be like matted or not, if it has to be like, you know, what color goes, you know, if you're just doing a black and white piece, what color goes.
You'll have as many opinions as you have people.
That's okay, that's okay.
There's mixed opinions regarding behind glass or not behind glass. Most of us spray our work with fixative at the end, depending on the size of your work, how many coats you're putting on it, and that kind of thing. Ampersand says that if you spray enough layers of fixative on it, you can frame it without glass.
Okay.
I've had pieces damaged that were sprayed with 4 to 6 layers. And Rod, you know how many coats you had on filigree?
Plenty.
Yeah, he's had a piece that was scratched just moving. I mean, so the reality is that if you rub something pretty abrasive on it, it's still going to potentially risk damaging your board, scratching the board. I'm shipping to a lot of national shows, and now do all my work behind. If it's for most of the shows where they're shipping, they actually want plexiglass because they don't want the risk of the actual glass breaking. Which I don't really like the looks of plexiglass. I much prefer the look of nothing in front of it. However, I've had 2 big national shows that said, well, one of them said, we would have loved to send your piece on tour, but it's not behind anything, and we don't feel comfortable taking the responsibility of shipping it from location to location without anything on it. And that would have been great exposure for me to go to various museums, have that piece go to museums. So I felt like I missed out because I didn't have any covering on that piece. And then the second piece, which was a small piece, again, didn't have anything in front of it. This was a few years ago. And it had actually been on tour with several museums, and the last museum that it went to said, we're not willing to hang this without any cover on it. So, for me personally, I now do everything behind either glass or plexiglass, depending on where the piece is going.
It's a big flop.
It is, and actually plexiglass at this point, with the price of petroleum, is actually not that much cheaper than glass, and I do museum glass, which is like the top of the top. For black and white pieces, I've actually gone to just doing the anti-glare, which is not the same as non-reflective. It's essentially museum glass without the UV resistance, because we've been told by Charlie that the black ink is extremely resistant to UV, and also I'm using a UV resistant spray as my finishing spray, and the non-glare is cheaper than the museum because it doesn't have that UV protection. I feel like for black and white works, that's okay. For pieces that I'm coloring, I still think that the colorings are more susceptible to fading. I haven't seen any studies on light fastness of ampersand inks. Has anyone?
No.
That's
a good question for Diane.
To ask them.
Well, if the ink on the board, that's the same.
It's carbon based. The black ink is carbon based. The colorings would not be carbon based because the carbon is black. That's what adds the black pigment to it. So I don't know what the light fastness is of the colorings. So at this point, I'm doing actual high quality museum, which is like liquid gold. I mean, I swear. If you melted it down and sent it to the gold exchange, it would probably be as much as the gold. It's very expensive to do, but people do. I mean, people that are knowledgeable that are going to these big international shows go, "Oh, that's museum glass." I mean, they recognize it because of the non-glare quality to it, and they understand. Most of those big collectors are knowledgeable about that thing enough to say that's costing her more. So a portion of what this cost is the cost of this framing with high quality materials. So.
I know when I submitted, every year they have this student art show, and for all the students and for the teachers. And every year I submitted a Scratchboard, and never was picked. And the thing is like, I always left them open, either on a floating canvas, floating frame, or without glass or matting or anything. Well, then this year, one of my instructors said, it doesn't look professionally done when it's like that. And I go, why? A painting doesn't have anything. Some of them are just hung up there with the thing. He goes, yeah, but it's oil or whatever, acrylic. So this year I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead, mat it, frame it, put the glass on it. I mean, I submitted my 2. They picked 1 at least, but still they said it's gotta look professional. The
Presentation,
The
that's right.
presentation for the gallery, they look at all that, you know.
My, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Go ahead.